Rachel was in the shower, and I found myself standing at the kitchen counter, eyes locked on her phone. My hand shook a little as I reached for it. My breathing? Shallow, tight. I wasn't proud of what I was doing. Felt wrong. But my gut had been screaming for answers, and I couldn't ignore it anymore. I scrolled fast, like ripping off a bandage. And then there it was, Justin. That name kept popping up again and again, like a drumbeat. The messages weren't long, but they were way too familiar. Inside jokes. Plans. Casual little lines that hinted at something deeper. My chest started to ache, like someone had tied a knot inside it. I set the phone back down the second I heard the shower cut off. My brain went into overdrive, running wild with questions and no good answers. Thinking back, I guess the signs were there. One particular Saturday night stands out. We were just sitting on the couch, nothing special. Rachel was across from me, lost in her phone. The screen lit up her face, and I caught this little smile. Soft. Secret. The kind she used to give me. But it had been a while since I'd seen it. Something funny? I asked, trying to play it cool. She barely glanced up. Just a meme. You wouldn't get it, she said, like I was some stranger in my own house. It hit harder than I let on. Rachel used to include me in everything. If something made her laugh, I was the first to hear it. Lately, though, her laughter felt like it belonged to someone else. Like she was living a life I wasn't invited into. At first, I brushed it off. Told myself maybe work was getting to her. We all go through rough patches, right? But weeks went by, and those little changes started stacking up. She was going out more. Dinners for work, girls' nights she never mentioned before. And when she left, it was like she was putting on a show, carefully chosen clothes, makeup just right, and perfume that lingered long after the door closed behind her. One evening, I stood in the bedroom doorway, watching her slip on her earrings. You've been out a lot lately, I said, trying to sound light, even though my chest felt heavy. She looked at me through the mirror, unreadable. Is that a problem? Not a problem, I said. Just different. She turned to face me, arms folded tight. Mark, not everything needs to be a federal case. Her voice was clipped, cold. Then she brushed past me like the conversation never happened. From that point on, something inside me wouldn't settle. It was like a quiet warning buzzing in the back of my mind, and no matter how I tried to shake it, it just kept getting louder. Then came the night that really changed everything. She'd gone out again, another girls' night, but this time, midnight came and went and still no sign of her. I sat in the living room alone, the house dead quiet except for the ticking of the clock. The kids were fast asleep. I noticed her phone on the kitchen counter, left there like an afterthought. My eyes kept drifting toward it. I told myself not to look. I'm not that guy. But something about her lately didn't sit right. I gave in. Heart hammering in my chest, I picked up her phone, unlocked it, and went through her messages. Most of it was harmless, boring even. Until I found him. Justin. The texts weren't over-the-top romantic, but they were close. Too close. One read, "Can't wait to see you." Another said, "Tonight was amazing." That was it. My blood ran cold. Just then, I heard the garage door rumble open. I slammed the phone back down and hurried over to the table, grabbing a coffee mug and pretending I'd been sitting there the whole time. Rachel came through the door a minute later, cheeks flushed and looking surprised to see me. "You're still up?" she asked, trying to sound casual. "Couldn't sleep," I said, watching her closely. She didn't meet my eyes. Just walked to the sink, rinsed out her glass, and said nothing. "Long night?" I asked, keeping my voice neutral. "Yeah," she said, her back still turned to me. "Just tired." But the way she stood, tense shoulders, clipped tone, it told a different story. Whatever she was feeling, it wasn't just exhaustion. I didn't say anything right away. Just sat there, still and steady, knowing deep down I couldn't pretend anymore. Something wasn't right, and I wasn't going to keep ignoring it. The woman I used to trust with my whole heart was hiding something, and I needed to find out what. Later that evening, the rain had started to fall, soft and steady against the windows. It filled the quiet like a whisper. I was clearing the dinner table, stacking up plates, while Rachel sat unusually stiff, hands wrapped tight around her wine glass. She'd barely touched her meal, and I could feel the tension pouring off her like heat. When I came back from the kitchen, she hadn't moved. Just stared into her wine, swirling it slowly like she was lost in thought. "We need to talk," she said, her voice calm on the surface, but far away, like she'd already made up her mind. I froze mid-step, still holding a plate in my hand. That phrase never led anywhere good. Carefully, I set the dish down and took a seat across from her. My stomach twisted like it was tying itself in knots. What's on your mind? I asked, trying to keep my tone even. She looked up at me then, really looked. And her eyes weren't soft, weren't searching for understanding. They were cold, determined. I've been feeling restless, she started, choosing each word like it was part of a speech she'd rehearsed. Our life, it's just become so predictable. Every day feels like a repeat of the last. I blinked, caught off guard. Restless. The word sat heavy in my mouth when I repeated it. What's that supposed to mean? She leaned back in her chair and sighed. It's not about you, Mark. This is about me. I need something more. Something different. Something exciting. Her words hit me like a punch to the gut. I felt the air go thin, but I kept my composure. Okay, I said slowly, cautiously. So what are you actually saying? She avoided my eyes. Just kept swirling her wine like the sound might drown out her own guilt. Then, as if she were talking about running errands, she said it. I've decided I'm going on a date. My chair scraped loudly as I stood up, my whole body shaking. You're kidding, I said, though I already knew she wasn't. I'm not, she replied flatly, still refusing to look at me. It's just something I need to do. Don't blow this out of proportion. Blow it out of proportion? I said, my voice climbing with disbelief. I stepped closer. You're my wife, Rachel. We made vows. Build a home. Raised kids together. And you think this is just something casual? She finally met my eyes, and the mix of guilt and annoyance in her face made my stomach churn. You don't understand, Mark. I felt trapped for a long time. I need this for me. Trapped. That word echoed in my head as I stared at her, fists clenched at my sides. What about me? I said. What about the kids? You think you can just walk out on our marriage, get your kicks, and come strolling back like nothing ever happened? She shrugged. That small gesture, so dismissive, cut deeper than if she'd screamed in my face. I'll make it up to you later. You'll understand. Eventually. I laughed, dry, bitter, running a hand through my hair as I started pacing the room. You really believe our family is just something you can pause for a thrill? That this life we built is disposable? She stood up and placed her wine glass on the table, slow and controlled. I don't expect you to get it. I just need you to accept it. Whether you do or not, that's on you. Rachel, I said, my voice barely steady, shaking from the weight of everything crashing down on me. You're making the biggest mistake of your life. She didn't flinch, just gave a cold little smirk and walked right out of the room, leaving me standing there, drowning in silence. And in that silence, every emotion I'd ever known came crashing in: rage, heartbreak, betrayal. They all hit me at once, tearing through me like a storm. But underneath all that pain, something else started to take root. Determination. She might have thought I'd sit back and watch her wreck everything we had. She was wrong. I sat down with trembling hands and started writing. Everything. Her words, her attitude, the way she looked at me like I was nothing. If she wanted to rewrite our story, fine. But I was going to take charge of the next chapter. Later that night, I sat in the dim glow of the living room, my hands gripping the edge of the coffee table. And all I could hear, over and over, was her voice in my head. I need this for myself. Every time I heard it, it cut deeper. I stared down at my hands, shaking somewhere between rage and disbelief. The woman I had built a life with, shared dreams and plans with, was now sitting across from me like a complete stranger, tearing it all apart like it meant nothing. I couldn't sit anymore. I shot up from the chair, too restless, too overwhelmed to stay still. My feet started moving on their own, pacing back and forth like I could walk off the pressure building in my chest. The air felt thick, hard to breathe. Anger simmered just below the surface, but underneath that fire was something even worse, an empty, aching kind of pain that went straight to the bone. I clenched my fists at my sides, trying like hell to stay in control, even though I felt like I was falling apart from the inside out. The house was too quiet. The kind of silence that echoes. Just the faint hum of the fridge in the background, like some sad reminder that life was still going on while mine had just shattered. This used to be my safe place, our home, filled with warmth, laughter, love. Now, it felt like a tomb, haunted by what Rachel had done. My eyes landed on her phone, still sitting there on the counter like it had nothing to hide. My pulse jumped as I walked toward it, my gut tangled with hesitation and the growing urge to know the full truth. I hovered over it, torn. Was this really me now? A man who needed to dig through his wife's messages just to find the truth? Then I thought about her eyes, cold and distant. The way she spoke to me, like I was a burden. That memory stiffened my spine. I picked up the phone and unlocked it. I scrolled fast, trying to brace myself. Most of it was routine, chats with coworkers, old friends. Then I saw the name I'd come to hate. Justin. The messages weren't filthy, but they didn't have to be. Just seeing the flirtatious tone, the vague plans, the kind of playful banter I hadn't shared with Rachel in years, it hit me like a punch. Each line was like a slap in the face. I set the phone down, gripping the edge of the counter to keep from falling over. My mind was racing, hurt turned to fury, then something else entirely. Determination. This wasn't just betrayal anymore. This was about everything we'd built, the life, the home, the kids. I wasn't about to let her torch it all without a fight. I stayed up most of the night, digging for anything that could help me make sense of what was happening, or at least help me prepare. Bank statements, calendar entries, any little breadcrumb she'd left behind. I didn't know if I was searching for clarity or collecting ammunition. At one point, I thought I heard her laugh. Maybe a memory, maybe not. But it cut deep. That laugh used to mean everything. Now, it just echoed through my chest like a ghost. When the first light of morning crept through the windows, I was no longer lost. I knew what I had to do. She wanted to play games? Fine. But she was going to learn what consequences looked like. This wasn't about patching up a broken marriage anymore. This was about reclaiming what was left of my life for me and for our kids. Later that morning, I sat at the dining room table, sunlight pouring through the window, casting long shadows across the floor. My laptop was open in front of me, humming softly, and my fingers moved with a kind of cold purpose. I opened up the shared bank account Rachel and I had used for years. My heart thudded as I scanned the list of transactions, looking for anything out of place. It didn't take long. Dinners at restaurants I'd never even heard of. Charges from high-end boutiques she'd never mentioned. A spa visit just a week ago, something she conveniently left out of any conversation. Each unexplained expense was like another crack in the already fractured foundation of our marriage. I leaned back in my chair, jaw clenched tight. Part of me wanted to excuse it, to tell myself it wasn't what it looked like. But my gut told me otherwise. This wasn't just about the money. The more I found, the stronger my resolve became. That afternoon, while she was out running errands, I turned back to her phone. I'd noticed how she always kept it close, shielded the screen, locked it the second I walked in. But today, she'd slipped. Left it out in the open like it didn't hold the key to everything. My hands were shaking as I picked it up again, weighed down by suspicion and dread. Unlocking it felt like trespassing, but after everything she'd done, I didn't feel guilty anymore. I dove into her messages again, scrolling until one name stopped me cold. Justin. The words weren't dirty, but they didn't need to be. Can't wait to see you again. Last night was exactly what I needed. I froze, breath catching in my throat. Just staring at those words, I felt like they were burning holes in my chest. This wasn't paranoia. This wasn't me imagining things. This was proof. Driven by equal parts pain and purpose, I reopened my laptop. I started mapping out her lies, lining up her spending habits, her excuses, her alibis. It was like building a puzzle I never wanted to see finished. But the more I pieced together, the clearer it all became. Rachel wasn't just bored. She wasn't restless. She was living a whole different life behind my back. I sat back, gripping the edge of the table, letting the full weight of it all settle in. The betrayal cut deep. But something stronger surged through me now. Resolve. She thought I'd stay clueless, that I'd roll over and take it. She miscalculated. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot. That evening, I stepped out onto the back porch, phone pressed to my ear. The air was cool, crisp, but my thoughts were heavy, cluttered with everything she'd done. The phone rang once, twice, then Kyle picked up. Mark, he said, his voice calm and steady, so different from the chaos in my own chest. You all right, man? You sound off. For a second, I didn't know where to begin. Then the floodgates opened. It's Rachel, I said, my voice cracking. Something's wrong. She's been cold, secretive. I found messages. There's this guy, Justin. In the bank account. Money's missing. Dinners. Places I've never even heard of. She's been lying to me, Kyle, I said, the words catching in my throat. There was a pause on the other end of the line, then I heard a sharp breath. She what? Kyle's voice dropped, edged with heat and disbelief. Yeah, I sighed, running a hand through my hair. I've already confronted her. She doesn't care. Says she's feeling restless, like our family's some kind of old sweater she can toss in the back of a closet when she's bored. Kyle let out a low whistle. Man, that's unreal. You don't deserve any of this, Mark. I don't know what to do anymore, I admitted, my voice quieter now, the weight of it all pressing heavy on my shoulders. All right, listen to me, Kyle said, his tone shifting, steady and firm. You've got to keep your head on straight. Don't let her see you fall apart. People like that? They slip up eventually. But you need solid proof, not just guesses. I stayed silent, thinking. You ever consider hiring a private investigator? He asked. A pie. I blinked. Isn't that a bit extreme? Extreme is what she's doing, man, Cole said bluntly. You said it yourself, she's sneaking around, lying to your face. You need real answers, Mark. And she sure as hell isn't going to hand them to you. He didn't wait for me to answer. Rob, remember the guy I hired for that business case a few years ago? He's good, quiet, reliable. If there's something going on, he'll dig it up. I leaned against the porch railing, gripping it tight. You really think it's come to that? Kyle's voice softened. Yeah, I do. I know it's hard to face, but you need the truth. Not just for your own sanity, for your kids too. Call Rob. There was a long pause between us. And Mark, Kyle added, whatever happens, don't lose it. That's what she wants. She's hoping you'll fall apart. Don't give her the satisfaction. I nodded slowly, Kyle's words starting to settle deep inside me. Thanks, man, I said quietly. I'll call him. Good, he said. You've got this, Mark. After the call ended, I stayed on the porch a while longer, staring out into the darkness. The breeze was cool against my face, but inside, I felt fire. I wasn't going to let her wreck our family without a fight. A couple days later, I found myself in a quiet office that smelled like coffee and worn leather. I sat across from Rob, the PI Kyle had recommended. He looked like a man who didn't miss much. Sharp eyes. Quiet, serious. You sure about this? Rob asked, leaning back slightly in his chair. I paused, then nodded. Yeah, I don't really have a choice. She's hiding something, and I need to know what it is. For me, and for my kids. Rob nodded, pulled out a legal pad. All right. I'll need whatever details you can give me. Her schedule, usual hangouts, phone numbers, anything that might help. I slid a folder across the table. Inside were screenshots of her messages, flagged bank charges, and a rough weekly schedule I'd been keeping track of. Rob flipped through the papers, nodding along. This is a good start, he said, tucking it into his case file. Give me a few days. I'll find out what's going on. Those next few days felt like they lasted forever. I went through the motions, dinner with the kids, small talk with Rachel, pretending like nothing was different. But every time she left the house with some casual excuse, my stomach tied itself in knots. Where was she really going? Who was she with? Finally, Rob called. His voice was calm, but direct. We need to meet. I've got something you'll want to see. Back in his office, the air felt heavier than before. Rob slid a folder across the desk. My fingers shook as I opened it. There they were, photos. Crystal clear. Rachel and Justin, walking into a hotel together. Arm in arm. Laughing at some bar, her hand resting on his arm like they'd known each other forever. Another grainy shot showed them in a car, heads leaned close, locked in quiet conversation that looked way too intimate. My stomach turned as I flipped through them. There's more, Rob said, pulling out a second folder. This one was thicker. Inside were transcripts of texts and phone logs. The messages were explicit, flirty, bold. Making plans. Swapping jokes. Planning their next meetup like nothing in the world mattered but them. I closed the folder, my hands trembling. My voice was barely a whisper. There's no denying it now. Rob leaned forward, eyes steady. You've got everything you need, Mark. The real question is, what are you going to do with it? I looked up, jaw clenched. I'm going to make sure she owns every damn bit of the mess she created. It's time she faced the consequences. Rob gave a small nod. Good. Just stay smart, all right? Don't let anger drive your next move. I left his office with those folders in hand. The truth finally laid bare, but the hurt weighed just as much. Still, my focus was sharper now. Rachel made her choices. Now it was my turn. That night, I sat at the kitchen table long after everyone else had gone to bed. The hum of the refrigerator was the only sound in the house. The table in front of me was covered in documents, photos, receipts, texts, evidence, each piece cut deeper than the last. I picked up the bank statements again. I was dragging over every expense, lavish dinners, designer clothes, spa visits, and that hotel reservation. I gritted my teeth, my jaw tight. She hadn't just betrayed me. She'd done it with style. He thought back to every excuse Rachel had ever given him. Work meetings, dinner with friends, quick errands that never made sense. All lies. Every one of them. And somehow, the photos hurt even more. He remembered staring at one earlier, trying to convince himself maybe it wasn't as bad as it looked. But no matter how he framed it in his head, the truth was written plain as day. Rachel, dressed in a way she hadn't for him in years, laughing with Justin as they walked into a hotel together. In another shot, she leaned into him at a bar, hand resting casually on his arm like they belonged to each other. What crushed Mark the most wasn't even the physical closeness. It was her face. She looked happy, light, like the version of her he hadn't seen in years. That carefree smile, the one he used to know, wasn't his anymore. His hands were shaking as he laid the photos back down. His heart thundered with grief, but underneath it all, fury was beginning to rise. He couldn't ignore the text messages either. Even though his chest felt tight and his head buzzed with rage, he read them. Every word. Every line that Rob had pulled from her private conversations with Justin. Last night was amazing. Can't wait to see you again. You make me feel alive in a way I haven't felt in years. Each word was a dagger, slicing through everything he thought he had with her. Mark shut the folder, his fist clenched so tight his knuckles turned white. 12 years he'd poured into their marriage. 12 years of sacrifice, support, trust. And this was what she gave him in return. Suddenly, he heard footsteps on the stairs. The creak of the floorboards told him she was coming down. Panic kicked in. He quickly shoved the photos and documents into a drawer, just as Rachel stepped into view. Her hair was a little messy, and she leaned against the doorway, casual like nothing had changed. "You're still up?" she asked, her voice light. "Yeah," he replied, forcing himself to sound calm. "Just going over some bills." She didn't meet his eyes. Instead, she tugged at the bottom of her shirt, a nervous habit he knew too well. "Don't stay up too late," she said and turned away. Not another word. Mark exhaled slowly as the sound of her footsteps faded. His anger was still there, but it had hardened into something sharper resolve. He had the proof now. Cold, undeniable proof. The woman who once stood in front of friends and family and swore she'd be faithful had destroyed it all. And there was no going back. Sadness rose in his chest, threatening to choke him, but he pushed it down. There was no time for that anymore. If Rachel wanted to rewrite the story of their life, fine, but Mark was going to make sure the truth was written in bold, permanent ink. The next morning, he picked up the phone and called his lawyer. "I've got everything," he said, voice steady and sure. "It's time to take the next step." Lena's voice came through the speaker, calm and confident. "Good. Send me what you've got. We'll start preparing everything." After hanging up, Mark stood at the window, watching the world outside go on like nothing had happened. But he knew different. The storm wasn't behind him, it was just beginning. But this time, he wasn't just weathering it. He was stepping right into it. Later that day, he stood in the living room, folder in hand, every muscle in his body wound tight. Rachel walked in, wearing that same casual look she always did, as if she hadn't just taken a sledgehammer to everything they'd built. "We need to talk," Mark said, his voice low but firm. She glanced his way, raised an eyebrow. "Now? I'm exhausted, Mark." "Yeah," he said again, more forcefully. "Now." With an irritated sigh, she dropped onto the couch, arms folded. "All right. What's so urgent?" Without a word, Mark walked over and laid the folder on the coffee table. He opened it slowly, revealing the photos, the receipts, the text transcripts, all of it. "Explain this," he said, his voice cracking under the weight of everything he was holding back. Rachel leaned forward, her eyes darting over the documents. For a second, her face showed something close to shock, but she masked it fast. Her expression turned cold. "Have you been spying on me?" she snapped, dodging the real issue like it wasn't sitting right in front of her. "Don't twist this around," Mark shot back, gripping the edge of the table. "You've been lying. Sneaking off to see him. I have everything, Rachel. Just tell me the damn truth." She leaned back, arms crossed, face tight. "You're being paranoid," she said bitterly. "You're always looking for something to be mad about. This is why I feel trapped, Mark. You never trust me." His voice rose despite himself. "I did trust you. For 12 damn years I trusted you. But you lied to my face, over and over. You think I don't notice the late nights? The way you guard your phone like it's a secret diary." Rachel stood up, her voice growing sharp. "You're suffocating, Mark. That's the real issue. You've always needed to control everything. Where I go, what I do. It's exhausting." Mark stood too, frustration boiling over. "Don't you dare twist this into my fault. This isn't about control, it's about basic respect. About loyalty. About honesty. Things you clearly gave up on." She smirked. "Cold. Dismissive. Think what you want. You're overreacting as usual. Justin's just a friend. And this," she gestured at the folder with disgust, "is pathetic." "Pathetic?" Mark's voice cracked, raw with emotion. "What's pathetic is throwing away your family for some fling. Do you even care what this is doing to us? What it's doing to our kids? Her face turned hard. I don't owe you an explanation, she spat. If you're so miserable, do something about it. Mark stared at her, stunned by the finality in her voice. She wasn't going to come clean. She wasn't going to apologize. She'd made her choice, and it didn't include him. Without a word, he closed the folder and walked out of the room. He didn't yell, didn't beg. That part of him was gone now. Later, sitting alone in his office, Mark picked up the phone and called Lena again. It's done, he said, and for once, his voice didn't shake. She's not going to stop. We need to move forward. Lena's voice came through calm and direct. Understood. I'll get started. Lena's voice came through calm, steady, like an anchor in rough water. Good. We'll make sure she's held accountable for what she's done. After the call ended, I sat there in the quiet, the silence pressing in. My resolve wasn't just holding, it was solidifying. Rachel thought she could twist the truth, play the victim, and walk away clean. But she had no idea who she was up against now. I wasn't falling apart. I was gearing up for battle. A few days later, I sat across from Lena in her office, the folders full of evidence resting heavy in my lap. The room was sleek and professional, polished wood, clean white walls, framed degrees on every surface. But none of that touched the storm spinning in my chest. Lena flipped through the documents, her eyes sharp and focused. She didn't miss a thing. Every photo, every statement, every message. You've done your homework, she said, finally setting the folder down and folding her hands neatly on the desk. Photos, financial inconsistencies, text transcripts. It's a strong start, but this is just the beginning. I leaned in, frustration boiling just beneath the surface. She's been lying to me for months, Lena. Taking money, sneaking around, and now she's out here acting like I'm the problem. Like I'm the bad guy. I hear you, Lena said firmly. And the first step is filing for temporary custody. What you've shown me paints a picture of instability, and the court takes that seriously when kids are involved. I nodded slowly, hands clenched tight in my lap. And the house? The kids can't lose their home on top of everything else. We'll file for an injunction, she said without missing a beat. She won't be able to make any major moves regarding the property without court approval. Then she paused, her tone shifting slightly. But Mark, this isn't just about legal moves. It's about controlling the story, and right now, Rachel's already rewriting it. I let out a long sigh, rubbing my temples. Yeah, she's out there spinning it already, telling anyone who'll listen that I'm paranoid, that I've been trying to control her. She even posted on Facebook, playing the victim, saying I've isolated her. Lena's lips pressed into a thin, tight line. We'll address that too. From here on out, you document everything. Every message, every conversation, anything she says. The more unhinged she gets, the better it'll support your case. Just as we were wrapping up, my phone buzzed. I glanced down and froze. Amber. Lena noticed my hesitation. Take it, she said. Step into the hallway if you need to. I nodded and walked out. My thumb hovered for a second, then I answered. Amber. Her voice came through shaky but clear. Mark. I don't even know if I should be calling, but I can't stay quiet anymore. I felt my chest tighten. What's going on? She's lying about you, Amber said, disgust thick in her voice. Telling people you've been abusive. Saying you've manipulated her for years. And it's not true. I know it's not true. My grip tightened around the phone. Why are you telling me this now? Because I've seen what she's really up to, she said. She's bragging, Mark. Laughing about how she's going to make you look like the villain so she can come out of this clean. I've got screenshots of her messages. I thought, you should have them. My heart was pounding now. Send them to me. A few minutes later, they came through, and they were brutal. Messages where Rachel mocked my attempts to fix things. Jokes about how easy it was to fool people. Comments about spinning the story to make herself look like the innocent one. I walked back into Lena's office and handed her my phone. You need to see this. Her eyes narrowed as she read, her jaw set. Well, this changes everything. She looked up at me, a new fire in her voice. With Amber's statement and these screenshots, we're not just dealing with infidelity. She's actively trying to destroy your reputation, and courts do not take that lightly. For the first time in what felt like weeks, I felt something shift. Hope. What's next? I asked. Lena gave a faint, confident smile. No? Now we make sure the full truth comes out. Every painful detail. She wanted a fight. She's about to get one. When I left her office, that thick weight in my chest felt just a little lighter. The road ahead was going to be rough, but at least now I had someone in my corner. I wasn't just reacting anymore. I was fighting back. Later that night, my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. One notification after another, piling up faster than I could clear them. Messages from friends, acquaintances, even relatives I barely heard from. Some were concerned, others downright accusatory. I finally opened Facebook, and my heart sank. Rachel had posted. For years I stayed silent. I endured control, manipulation, all for the sake of my children. But I can't be quiet anymore. Abuse isn't always physical. Sometimes it's the silence, the isolation, the cold stares. I'm finally finding the courage to speak. Beneath the post was a photo of her, face streaked with tears, looking broken. The comments were already stacking up. Stay strong, Rachel. You're so brave for sharing this. Some things are better kept private. I sat frozen, jaw clenched, fingers curled into fists. It was one thing for her to lie to me, but to lie to the world like this? To paint me as the monster? That was something else entirely. I stood up, pacing the length of the living room, my thoughts spiraling. The kids were upstairs, still innocent to everything unraveling beneath their feet. I couldn't lose it. Not now. Not in front of them. But inside, I was on fire. Every moment with Rachel replayed in my head like a reel I couldn't shut off. Had I ever done anything to deserve this? The answer hit me fast and clear, no. Not a damn thing. I picked up my phone and called Lena. She's crossed a line, I said, my voice tight with fury. She's calling me abusive on Facebook. People are buying it. On the other end, Lena stayed calm, but I could hear the steel in her voice. This was expected, Mark. Classic deflection. She knows the truth is closing in, so she's trying to get ahead of it. Send me the post and any screenshots you can grab. We'll use this. I hovered my thumb over the share button, hesitating. But what if this messes with my job? My name. You're already in the middle of it, Lena said bluntly. But here's the thing, this kind of stunt always backfires. The court takes false accusations seriously. And the more she panics, the more she reveals. That evening, I sat at the kitchen table, rereading her post. It still made my blood boil. But as I scrolled through the comments, something unexpected happened. People started speaking up for me. I've known Mark for years, one comment read. He's one of the kindest, most patient people I've ever met. This doesn't add up. Another said, if this is real, why not go through the legal channels instead of posting it all online? For the first time in days, I felt a flicker of relief. It wasn't over, and the damage was done, but at least some people were seeing through her act. I closed the app and looked over at the pictures of my kids lined up on the counter. This wasn't just about clearing my name anymore. This was about protecting them from the fallout. The next morning, I walked into Lena's office more focused than I'd felt in weeks. I handed her a folder full of screenshots. She wants to drag me through the mud? I said, keeping my voice steady. Fine. But she's not getting away with it. Lena nodded. Let her dig her own grave. We'll make sure the truth is what gets buried alongside her lies. And just like that, the next phase of the fight began. The courtroom was cold and tense. You could feel the weight in the air as the judge entered and everyone rose. I sat at our table with Lena by my side, calm, collected, completely in control. The storm inside me raged on, but she kept me grounded. Across the room, Rachel sat next to her attorney. Slick suit, smug smile, the kind of guy who thought he could sell ice to a snowman. As the hearing began, her lawyer didn't waste a second. Your Honor, he said, striding toward the bench, Mrs. Evans has endured years of emotional neglect. Mr. Evans's controlling behavior has left her isolated and desperate. Her actions, though unconventional, were driven by a need to reclaim her independence and create a healthier environment for her children. I clenched my fists under the table. Every word felt like a lie punched straight to my gut. I wanted to stand up and shout, but Lena placed a hand on my arm, her message clear, stay calm. Her lawyer kept going. Mrs. Evans's social media post was a brave step. It reflects the courage it took to speak out after years of silent suffering. This case isn't about infidelity, it's about a mother doing what's best for her children. As soon as he sat down, Lena stood up with grace and purpose. She approached the bench with quiet authority, folder in hand. Your Honor, she began, voice steady, Mr. Evans has been a dedicated husband and father. The evidence will show that Mrs. Evans's allegations are not only false but part of a deliberate strategy to avoid accountability for her own behavior. She held up the folder. We have documented proof of her affair, financial misconduct, and a coordinated smear campaign against my client. She paused, letting it sink in. This is not the story of a mother protecting her children. It's the story of a woman attempting to rewrite the truth. The judge nodded, giving Lena the go-ahead. She opened the folder and began to lay it all out. First, let's talk finances, she said, handing documents to the clerk. Over the past 6 months, Mrs. Evans has made multiple unauthorized withdrawals from the couple's joint account. Thousands of dollars used for expensive dinners, boutique purchases, and hotel stays, none of which benefited the children or the household. Rachel's lawyer jumped up. Relevance, Your Honor. Spending habits don't reflect parenting ability. The judge raised a hand. Overruled. Continue, Ms. Brooks. Thank you, Your Honor, Lena said, barely missing a beat. Here's the breakdown of every transaction, backed up by official bank statements. Then she moved to the next strike. Now, the affair. We have photographic evidence of Mrs. Evans meeting with her partner, Justin, at a hotel and a bar. Alongside that are text messages that go far beyond innocent conversation. She held up a new set of pages. These messages demonstrate a pattern of ongoing deceit, emotional abandonment, and a complete disregard for her responsibilities as a parent. The courtroom stirred as she placed the images and transcripts before the judge. I glanced over at Rachel. She was shifting in her seat now, her confidence cracking, just a little. She wasn't smirking anymore. Her lawyer tried to take back control. Your Honor, this is nothing but character assassination. My client's personal relationships don't define her parenting. But Lena didn't back down. Your Honor, Lena said, her tone turning sharper as she held up the printed screenshots. These actions go straight to the heart of credibility. They show a complete disregard for what's best for the children. If Mrs. Evans is willing to lie to her husband, siphon off family funds, and smear him online, how can we possibly trust her to prioritize the well-being of their kids? The judge turned toward Rachel's attorney. Objection overruled. Proceed. Lena didn't miss a beat. She held the papers higher. We also have these, Mrs. Evans's public posts accusing Mr. Evans of abuse, with zero evidence to support her claims. Not only is this damaging to my client, but it creates a hostile, confusing environment for the children, who are inevitably caught in the middle of her accusations. Rachel's lawyer stood, his face flushed. Your Honor, these posts were made in the heat of an emotional moment. They're not reflective of my client's character or her parenting. Lena raised a brow, cool and confident. An emotional moment is one thing. What Mrs. Evans did was strategic. These weren't impulsive outbursts, they were calculated attacks. And we have the text messages to prove it. She reached into her file again. We've received testimony and corroborating evidence from one of Mrs. Evans's former friends, someone who's provided screenshots where Mrs. Evans admits to making up these claims in an effort to turn public opinion against Mr. Evans. The judge leaned forward slightly. Counselor, he asked Rachel's attorney, do you have a response to this? The man hesitated, eyes darting to Rachel. Then he gave a small shake of his head. Not at this time, Your Honor. The courtroom fell into a hush as the judge studied the pile of evidence laid before him. Lena turned to me, her voice low but confident. This is it, she said. She can't walk away from this now. When it was finally my turn to speak, I kept my focus where it mattered most, on my kids. Your Honor, I began, my voice steady but tight with emotion. This isn't about me trying to hurt Rachel. And it's not about revenge. This is about our children. All I've ever tried to do is give them stability, keep them away from this chaos. They deserve to grow up in a home where they feel safe, where they know the truth. That's all I wanted. The judge nodded slightly, her face unreadable. As the proceedings wrapped up, I felt a strange mix of emotions, relief, exhaustion, and something close to peace. Rachel's attorney had tried his best to paint me as the villain, but the facts told a different story. The judge's final words echoed in my head as the gavel came down. I will review all evidence presented and issue my ruling shortly. This court is adjourned. And just like that, the silence returned. But I didn't feel powerless anymore. I'd shown up. I'd stood my ground. I had fought for the truth. Now, I was ready for whatever came next. The room shifted again as the next witness was called. Tina Cole, Justin's ex-wife. She walked to the stand with quiet strength, though I could see the tension in her shoulders. Her hands gripped the edge of the witness box as she settled in. Her eyes swept the courtroom briefly, pausing on Rachel's defiant stare before locking onto the judge. Lena stood, calm and in control, and walked to the center of the courtroom. Mrs. Cole, thank you for joining us. Can you tell the court about your relationship with Mr. Justin Cole and how recent events have impacted your family? Tina took a steady breath. Justin and I were married for 10 years. We have 2 kids together. Things started falling apart about 6 months ago when I discovered he was having an affair with Rachel Evans. Her voice was firm, but I could hear the pain beneath it. How did you find out? Lena asked gently. Tina's tone sharpened. I saw messages on his phone. Messages from Rachel. They weren't subtle. She told him how much better he made her feel. How she couldn't wait to be with him again. It wasn't just a fling. They were planning a future. The judge leaned in, brows tight. Lena handed Tina a folder. Are these the messages you're referring to? Tina nodded. Yes. They detail specific meetings, dates and times Rachel was supposed to be at home with her family, but instead she was with Justin. Lena nodded and asked, Can you tell us how this affected you and your children? Tina paused, her voice catching just slightly. It shattered everything. My kids were confused, heartbroken. Justin left us. I was the one left behind to pick up the pieces. Rachel didn't care. She pushed him to end our marriage without a second thought. Like we didn't matter at all. Lena took a step closer. Did Rachel ever reach out to you directly? Tina's voice hardened. Yes. She sent me a message. Said, I'm sorry things didn't work out for you, but Justin and I are happy now. It wasn't an apology. It was a slap in the face. A ripple went through the courtroom. People whispered. The tension was palpable. At the table, I gripped the edge so hard my knuckles went white. Lena gave it a moment, letting the weight of Tina's words settle. Mrs. Cole, she continued, why did you agree to testify today? Tina sat up straighter, her eyes steady. Because Rachel needs to be held accountable. She didn't just ruin my marriage. She lied to her own husband. She pulled her children into this mess. Mark deserves the truth. So do his kids. Lena gave a small nod, then stepped back. Rachel's lawyer rose, his tone smug. Mrs. Cole, isn't it true you're bitter over how your marriage ended? That maybe you have a personal grudge against my client? Tina didn't flinch. I'm here to tell the truth, Tina said, her voice unwavering. Not vent my feelings. The evidence speaks for itself. And with that, she stepped down from the stand. You could feel the impact of her testimony settle like a wave across the courtroom. She hadn't just exposed the affair. She'd ripped open the full scope of Rachel's deception. The silence that followed said everything. For the first time in this entire ordeal, I felt the shift. Like the current was finally moving in my favor. Still, part of me wasn't sure how much damage had already been done, especially to my reputation. I'd spent years building my name as a trusted weight loss coach, someone people relied on. But now, that too was teetering. I took a deep breath and stood. Walking to the witness stand, I felt the weight of it all pressing on my shoulders, but I kept my back straight. My palms were damp, sure, but I knew why I was here. I wasn't fighting Rachel anymore. I was fighting for my kids. The judge watched me closely as I raised my hand and took the oath. Lena gave me a subtle nod, steady and reassuring. I caught Rachel's gaze for a moment, but she looked away, eyes locked on the table like she couldn't bear to face the wreckage. Lena stood. Mr. Evans, could you explain to the court your main concerns regarding the current situation? I leaned toward the mic, steadying my voice. My biggest concern has always been my children, I said. They've been caught in the middle of something they don't understand. And it's my responsibility to give them stability, to keep them safe. They need a home where they feel loved, where they know they're not alone. Right now, that's not something Rachel's providing. I swallowed hard and continued. I'm not perfect, Your Honor. No parent is. But I've always shown up. Late-night fevers, last-minute school projects, scraped knees and spilled cereal. I've been there. And they know it. They trust me. Lena nodded gently, then asked, how has Rachel's behavior affected the children? I let out a breath. They're confused. They ask why she's not home as much, why she seems so upset. I try to shield them from it, but kids pick up on everything. They're scared and uncertain. I paused, the words catching in my throat. My son told me the other night, Dad, it feels better when you're here. That's what this is about. Giving them peace. They didn't ask for any of this, but I'll be damned if I let them suffer because of it. The judge's face softened slightly, though she remained composed. Lena moved on. If the court grants you primary custody, how do you plan to ensure the children's well-being? I didn't hesitate. I'll keep doing what I've always done. I'll make sure they have a home filled with love and consistency. I'll keep them focused on school, their friendships, and their future. I'll remind them every day that this isn't their fault. When I stepped down from the stand, I felt something shift inside me. Like I'd finally taken control, not just over the situation, but over how it would affect my children's lives going forward. The courtroom was thick with tension. I sat down beside Lena. She didn't say a word, but her calm presence was enough. Across the aisle, Rachel leaned toward her attorney, whispering quickly, her body tight with unease. The confidence she'd worn earlier was nowhere to be found. Judge Whitman adjusted her papers, then looked up. Her expression was firm. "This has been a difficult case," she began, with intense emotions and conflicting narratives. "But my obligation is clear, to act in the best interest of the children." I held my breath. "The evidence submitted paints a deeply concerning picture," she continued. "Mrs. Evans, your conduct, specifically your financial irresponsibility, public efforts to discredit Mr. Evans through unsubstantiated abuse claims, and your involvement in an extramarital affair reflects a pattern of instability. That instability directly threatens the well-being of your children." My heart pounded. Hope surged. "Mr. Evans," she said, turning to me now, "while no parent is without flaws, this court recognizes your continued commitment to providing a safe, stable, and nurturing environment. Your actions have consistently placed the needs of your children above your own." I nodded once, my jaw tight, trying to stay composed. "It is the decision of this court," Judge Whitman said firmly, "to grant Mr. Evans primary custody of the children. Mrs. Evans, you will retain supervised visitation rights, to be reviewed in 6 months pending behavioral improvements." She glanced at her notes, then added, "Due to your financial misconduct and the unnecessary escalation of this case, you are also ordered to cover a portion of Mr. Evans's legal fees." The gavel fell with a sharp crack. And just like that, the courtroom breathed again. I sat frozen, the judge's words echoing in my ears. Primary custody. The flood of relief hit me like a wave. I felt the tears well up, but I blinked them back. I wasn't just relieved, I was proud. I'd fought for my kids. And now, they'd have what they deserved. Peace, stability, and the truth. But then, Rachel's voice cut through the quiet like a whip. "This isn't fair. He's turning them against me." Judge Whitman raised her hand, silencing her instantly. "Mrs. Evans," she said coolly, "this is not the time to argue. The ruling stands. I suggest you focus on rebuilding your relationship with your children in a healthy, constructive way." As people began gathering their things and the courtroom slowly emptied, I turned to Lena. "Thank you," I said, my voice low, steady. She gave me a small smile. "You earned this, Mark. Now go take care of those kids," Lena said with a smile as we walked out of the courtroom. The cold air hit my face the moment I stepped outside, and for the first time in months, I could actually breathe. Really breathe. The road ahead wasn't going to be smooth, I knew that, but I was ready for whatever came next. For them. For my kids. Rachel, on the other hand, didn't take the court's decision well. In the days that followed, my phone lit up constantly, texts, emails, message after message, all boiling over with anger and veiled threats. One read, "You think this is over? You'll regret taking everything from me." I sighed as I read them, forwarding each one to Lena without responding. "Let her vent," Lena had told me. "The more she lashes out, the more she confirms the judge made the right call." But Rachel didn't stop there. One evening, while I was helping my daughter with her spelling homework, the doorbell rang. Loud. Unexpected. My youngest perked up instantly. "Mommy's here," she squealed, already on her feet. I moved fast, stepping in front of her gently. "Hey, I'll talk to her. You two stay in here, okay?" I walked to the door, steadied myself, and opened it. Rachel was standing there, arms crossed, face flushed with frustration. "You don't get to keep them from me," she snapped, her voice low and tight. "You have supervised visitation, Rachel," I replied calmly. "You're not supposed to just show up. They're my kids too. And they need stability," I said firmly, standing my ground. "This isn't about you or me anymore. It's about what's best for them. And that means following the court's orders." She stared at me for a long second, her jaw clenched like she was ready to explode, but then something in her gave. Her shoulders slumped. She turned around without another word and walked back to her car, slamming the door so hard it made the windows rattle. I watched her drive off. And for the first time, I didn't feel dread in my chest, I felt calm. Back inside, the kids were laughing over a puzzle, their giggles like music in the house. And in that moment, peace finally settled in.